The sense of touch. This is a biggie. What happens when the sense of touch is underdeveloped? The pupil will have a big problem in the school environment. Okay, we all have a perceived circle. Okay, a safe circle, if you like, or a personal space around us. But for some pupils, this sense of space is larger. Okay, so they will think someone is closer to them than they actually are. So when a child is lining up, for instance, do you find that it's always the same child that you're giving off to for pushing, and yet you can't understand why this otherwise kind child would be pushing in the line? Okay, so this can be the reason. So understanding spatial awareness and the sense of touch. We all know what it's like when someone invades our space. Say you're sitting at a bus stop and someone sits right down beside you. You're going to slide up the seat, right? You maybe feel like pushing them back, but as a rational adult, you're going to move away a little bit. What happens if they move after you? What happens if they follow you? Your sensory system, your inner sensory system is going to start activating, and your frustration level is going to go up. And I mean, I know if someone followed me, I'd be going, do you mind? What's the child going to do in the line? They're going to push. Okay. So I mean, for those children, maybe it's best to let them hold the door, although you might have a whole load of them, so there might not be enough doors. But just thought of that, actually. So understanding the sensors in the skin. Now, this is a biggie, okay? It's one that most people have never heard of, all right? It can actually hurt some children to be touched lightly or hugged. So you've maybe seen the back, the impact this has, but you don't know that it's actually a thing, okay? We have sensors in our skin to detect a light touch and a deep impact. We're supposed to get the right message to the brain, okay? So if someone brushes past a child lightly, they could well be howling. And you're going, I hardly touched you. What are you on about? What are you complaining about? The same child could run into a wall, bounce off, and walk on without any reaction whatsoever. Now, how can that be? Another fascinating fact. For a child like this, the sensors in the skin are switched the wrong way round, just like B's and D's can be round the wrong way, or consequences can be round the wrong way. So what that means is that light touch is sending the deep touch pain signal to the brain. The deep touch, so the hard impact, is sending the light touch to the brain, hence the wall, and hence the light brush. Okay, and some children come to us, they can't wear socks, they can't wear pants, haircuts hurt them, okay, and yet they can run into a wall. I've had children who have come to us who have a broken arm, and the mother didn't realise for 3 days, and finally took them, and they were x-rayed, the arm was broken. Child didn't realise. No pain signal going to the brain at all, and yet they can't wear socks. Okay. We've actually had children in the clinic that picks their skin until they bleed. Every week I say I'm going to take that one out because it kills me. But they're not getting the pain. I couldn't do that to my skin. It would hurt too much. But they're not getting that pain signal, okay, to the brain. So thankfully, the exercises switch the sensors round the right way. And you saw me hitting the pendulum ball with the fingertips. There's more sensors, 20 I think more sensors in the fingertips than there are in any of the rest of the hand. So that is regulating the whole skin organ by hitting it with the elbows, with the wrist, and with the fingertips. Okay, which is fascinating. We just think it is fascinating, and we do think it's the most fascinating link in the whole of the body and mind connections. Our sense of touch is our sense of feeling, and our sense of feeling is our emotions. So this is where the biggie comes in, okay? So therefore, if the child's skin sensors are sent the wrong way round in the skin, their emotions are round the wrong way as well. Okay, it's all linked, because whatever's happening in the physical, remember, is having an impact in the mental. When the sensory system is switched the wrong way, the child can get overly anxious about the little things. So again, you're looking at them and going, seriously, over that? And yet, a relative or a pet could die and there's no emotion shown. Okay, so when you think about what's happening in the skin, you'll understand what's happening in the mind. So oversensitive skin, overreaction, big massive reaction to the little things in life. Reduced sensitivity in the skin is really no reaction to the big things, a lack of empathy for others, in other words. These children cannot possibly self-regulate their system until it's switched around the right way. And again, thankfully, our exercises incorporate this. Self-regulation and meltdowns. When a child finds it difficult to self-regulate their emotions, they are continually in fight or flight. You hear this a lot from trauma experts about fight or flight. The result of this, this is the result of rigidity. Remember I said about the rigidity whenever you're throwing a beanbag on the balance board and everything's rigid and tight in the physical. That has the direct effect on the tightness in the thought processes. So again, I'm going to give you a little analogy here, because I think analogies help you to put pictures in your own minds. If you imagine we're all pots of stew, okay, we're bubbling away on the hob. And our pots of stew, this is our lives, okay, and our pots of stew are simmering along. And if we throw a big bit of potato in, yes, we rise up a bit, but then we come back down to a simmer again. Now, in the analogy of life, we're simmering along. Maybe the exhaust falls off the car and you think, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about that? And then logically you can work out, sure, Jack can fix that tonight or tomorrow, I'll be back on the road. And you logically, and you come back down to a simmer again, okay? We have a capacity at the top of our pots that allows us that little bit of bubble up, comes back down again, but we don't spill over. These children have no capacity at the top of their pot. They are right up to here. Everybody wants a piece of them, and they are like that with a capacity. But their stew isn't simmering. Their stew is boiling and spitting all the time. So a little bit of carrot in the analogy, or a little bit of onion going into their pot can be enough to make them go and go into meltdown. And of course, it blubs over the hob, it blubs over the work surfaces, and they have no connection, no capacity to be able to pile it all back in again and get the lid on. So that meltdown can go on for hours, 4 hours sometimes. Okay, because they have no capacity. So the exercises will reduce all of that frustration, so we build them in a capacity, and we get them from boiling and spitting to a simmer within the pot, and build them in the capacity that they don't boil over anymore. Meltdowns usually are a thing of the past, or very well reduced for us by 4 months. Now think of the impact that has on the child in the classroom, never mind the child themselves and the parents, okay, because it's exhausting when a child goes into a meltdown. You don't know whether to leave them alone, you don't know whether to hug them, you don't know whether to lie on them, and sometimes none of that works, okay. So how do we develop the sense of touch? Every exercise in the performance breakthrough program involves the sense of touch, okay? So, and the calculation of force, precision, and energy, how much energy and force we have to put through things. So when a child is catching a beanbag, for instance, they have to decide how much force they're going to put into it so they don't hit the ceiling and they don't just baby it, okay? They have to judge from the brain how high or low, so how much force is going through the arm in order to throw it, and how much through the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, the fingers, and this develops the fine and gross motor skills, okay? When hitting the pendulum ball, the right amount of force is a skill that has to be honed. The child initially will maybe hit it too lightly and the ball doesn't come back to them, or they hit it too hard and it comes back and hits them in the face, and it teaches them not to hit so hard again. No, I'm joking. But you know, they have to judge how hard to hit it so that they don't have to get out of its way. Okay, and again, it's all about smooth and controlled movements. Smooth and controlled movements equals smooth and controlled thinking. Okay, so these exercises train the brain to develop smooth, controlled movements in the physical body. When this happens, the brain processes information in a smooth, controlled, and relaxed manner. Most of these children are not relaxed. Okay. This develops the decision-making area of the child's brain and enables them to connect with their logic. Now, use your imaginations again. This is no longer a beanbag. This is now a brain, a rudimentary brain, albeit. Okay, so you have your bottom part of the brain, which is your fight or flight. It's your blah part of the brain. It's reactory. It doesn't think. It just reacts. Okay, it's primal. So that's your fight or flight part. Here's your thinking part of the brain. Okay, now remember the tightness I talked about in the physical? That creates almost, now it's not a thing, but it's almost like a tight band around the brain that keeps these children in fight or flight and doesn't allow them to access their logic, their thinking part of the brain. Because what we see is, and I mean, that's not technical, you're not going to find that in a scientific book, okay? But what we see is, as we release, and it can take 6 months, as we release the physical, so it goes from that, like a raptor, to a nice controlled, go with the flow, where they can think about their eyes and keeping their head still and all the rest of it. So we see this tightness removed from the brain. Out of fight or flight they come and into their logic. Now that's when our magic really, really is seen. Because, I mean, it's just their ability to process information once they get out of fight or flight is there. And of course, 3 months down the line, we've hardwired that. So at 6 months, you're hardwiring 2 lots. At 12 months, you're hardwiring 4 lots of 3 months of hardwiring. That's a lot of hardwiring when you think about the brain. Okay? So that's vital that we get them out of fight or flight. And again, with working with parents, with working on Zoom, it's brilliant because we can take up a few sessions and you just use those couple of sessions to get them actually relaxed and out of fight or flight, and then the parents can take on the program again. You know, so we work very, very closely to get them out of that fight or flight by 6 months, which isn't very long really whenever you think of a child and the rest of their life. You know, what can teachers do? Taking my slides are still moving down. Here they are. Okay, so what can teachers do? You're already doing everything that you can do, as far as I can see, in the classroom, for the children to achieve in the classroom. But as I've stated, some children will not respond, and they'll not respond to the teacher's efforts, which is very frustrating for you. Okay, it's frustrating for the kid, but it's very frustrating for you as educators. But when you think about it, when you think about the sense of touch in particular, you cannot teach someone that it shouldn't hurt when they're brushed against slightly. Neither can you teach them that they should howl when they run into a wall. You can't teach that. It's either in you or it's not. You know, you can't teach somebody empathy. You can't teach someone when they should get upset and when they shouldn't get upset. Those teachers, there's really nothing you can do about the skin thing, only get the sensory system into line. And that's up to the parents. The parents have to take this on board themselves. Because I do feel often, you know, parents or teachers are handed, or head teachers are handed the diagnosis, and it's over to the teacher, and parents just think that teachers are going to wave a magic wand. Now they've fought to get this diagnosis over 2 years, and all of a sudden everything's going to be okay. And you're looking at them going, we're limited. And I think teachers really need, you know, you have to be able to take on board that you can't do everything for a child. I think that has to come from the EA actually, that, you know, you can't, it's just impossible to put that empathy or whatever in.